ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So we welcome all the devotees to our weekly Gita class. Happy to be back with all of you and really missing those programs happening at SVS Hall. But whatever life gives to us, we cannot stop life from giving it to us, but we can always do the needful to deal with it. And with this kind of a mood, we are continuing with our online classes, waiting to get a permission to do our live classes at SVS Hall. So today is a very important day. Not only have we begun the new year, we are in 2021, the first class we are doing in 2021. And very importantly, we are also beginning with the ninth chapter of the Gita. And ninth chapter of the Gita, Krishna calls it, the title of this chapter is the most confidential knowledge. Rajaguhya Yoga, as it is mentioned in Sanskrit. So Raja means king, the highest, and Guhya means secret, something which is very confidential. And even in Sanskrit, the name is Raja Guhya Yoga, the most confidential knowledge. So slowly, as we are going through the journey of the Bhagavad Gita, first chapter was dealing with the confusions of Arjun, and the second chapter, when he finally collapsed, intellectually, logically, he collapsed. Then Krishna started speaking to him how, first let us start with your identity. Who are you? Are you this body? Are you the mind? And then Krishna revealed to him something which is very natural, but something that is very much neglected, that we are not the body, we are the spirit soul. So although this is knowledge about us, but we never thought about it like that. And we never discussed about our own identity like that. And neither in our schools today is this concept ever discussed, that first, before discussing the world around us, let us focus on who we are. Nobody talks like that. But Krishna is always different in his approach, and that's why he went to the root of the whole crisis, the identity crisis, and he started with the whole concept of who are you, and then he gave us this knowledge that we are not this ever changing body, we are not this ever fluctuating mind, but we are always the spirit soul, which is the life force within. So that was something which is very confidential, something that was very secret. Nobody knows it. If you talk about the Bhagavad Gita's this very fundamental concept that we are not this body, we are spirit soul, I'm sure with your friends, with your family members, or with anybody else who's not attending these programs, this one topic, that who are we originally, this one topic can lead to hours and hours of discussion. And yet, from the Gita perspective, this is something very fundamental. This is something which is very preliminary knowledge. So, although it is preliminary from Gita's perspective, but it is very confidential knowledge from the worldly perspective. So, in the chapter 2 and a little bit in chapter 3, Krishna presented to us something which is very confidential, guhya. And then in chapter 7 and chapter 8, which we discussed last, we were discussing about how somebody practices this knowledge. So it is one thing to know that I am a citizen of India, and it is one thing to actually live by the principles of the Indian Constitution, or to actually live by the principles that form the basis of the society in India. And sometimes we could have people living in India, but they do not align with the values that India stands for. It is quite possible like that. Similarly, it is one thing to be a member of International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and it is another thing to actually live by the principles of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And this is not just about the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Whenever we are part of any organization, every organization stands for certain ethics, certain core principle values. And it is often an irony that although the purposes of a particular organization are clearly mentioned and there is sufficient discussion and sufficient focus on the core principles of an organization, but somehow the nature of this world is it will always distract us and allow us to consider something that is superficial to be the core principles, and something that is core principles, we might take it to be very superficial. So here we are reading and learning about the knowledge of the Gita, but then the next challenge is to live by these principles, the knowledge that Krishna spoke in the second chapter and the third chapter, to actually live by those principles. That's a challenge by itself. And that's why seventh chapter and eighth chapter, if you read, was a little bit in that direction. That how do we live by those principles? So Krishna, he began seventh chapter by saying, "Hear from me, and I'll tell you how to live by these principles." 7.3, Krishna says how out of so many people, hardly one knows me in truth. Manushyanam sahasreshu. So 7th chapter and 8th chapter, we're dealing with one step above confidential. So second and third chapter was confidential, and then seventh and eighth chapter was more confidential. In Sanskrit, confidential is guhya, and more confidential is called guhya tara. And then in the ninth chapter now, Krishna himself is calling this ninth chapter not as guhya, not as guhya tara, not confidential, not more confidential. Now he's calling it guhya tama, or this is the most confidential knowledge. And what is this most confidential knowledge? First is to know that we are spirit soul. Second is to live by those principles that yes, I am a spirit soul and Krishna is the source of everything. And now I have a relationship with Krishna. But now to take that relationship with Krishna, not at a very superficial level, but take it really deep and to have pure loving, pure service attitude to Krishna. For instance, just an example, if any one of us in our childhood days was not aware who our father was, sometimes there are some quarrels in the family and the mother gets separated. It's a painful experience, but sometimes it could happen that the mother is raising the child and the child keeps asking throughout his or her life that who is my father, because everyone in the class seems to have a father. For the social functions, always there is a pair sitting, mother and father. But I never seem to have a father. Who's my father? And the mother, just keeps on avoiding the topic. And then one day, something gets reconciled, and the mother calls the father to her home and tells the child, "Do you remember all this while, all these years, so many times there was a confrontation between you and me, and you used to ask me, who's your father? Who's your father? Who's your father? Today is that day when I'm going to tell you who's your father, and this is your father." And what a revelation it will be for that child. What a emotional moment will be for the child. And now imagine, now till now the child had an identity that he is a child and he has a mother, but now he got a father. How will he establish that relationship with that long lost father, or long lost relationship with that father which is now re-established? Now how is he going to relate to that father? So initially, probably he has some mm, difficulty in relating to this stranger. Till this time, he didn't know him, so he's a stranger. But then slowly he starts understanding what my father likes, what my father does not like, and what were the different situations that led to this separation. Why this father was not very easily accessible. And slowly, he understands my father is such a nice person, and he slowly understands how somehow the situation was not so nice for the father and the mother to stay together, but the father is such a nice person. And slowly as the relationship matures and the child realizes that my father is such a nice person, he will go so close to the father in that relationship And most probably, he will try to compensate for all the loss of time that happened for so many years in which he was not able to connect to the Father. So, this is something that has happened to all of us also, that we have a Father, Lord Krishna, and the Gita, in one sense, is Krishna's letter to all of us. And Krishna writing in that letter to all of us how for so many years you didn't know me, and for so many years because of the situation, nobody allowed you to know about me. Nobody ever gave a reference about me. Whatever, I don't have any complaints against anybody, but here I am, my dear child. I am writing my personal letter to you and letting you know that I am your father. And now many of us have begun our relationship post our Gita course. We have begun a relationship with Krishna. Now, slowly, second chapter, third chapter, seventh chapter, eighth chapter. Now we have reached the ninth chapter. And here now Krishna is going to reveal his own heart to all of us, and he's going to take us to the highest level possible. That please, please, please come close to me. And this is that most confidential knowledge. So this is, this also has a lot of similarities. This chapter has a lot of similarities with chapter number seven. Chapter number seven started with Krishna himself beginning that I want to speak about myself now. I spoke a lot about karma yoga, jnana yoga, and dhyana yoga in the third chapter, the fourth chapter, and the sixth chapter. And I want to speak about myself. Remember, the third chapter began with a question, the fifth chapter began with a question, but seventh chapter started with Krishna speaking more in detail about what he spoke in the sixth chapter, especially the last shloka of the sixth chapter. Similarly, ninth chapter also, it begins with Krishna himself speaking ahead. And if you remember the eighth chapter, last shloka, anybody remembers the essence of the last shloka of the eighth chapter? The concept that was presented in the last shloka of the eighth chapter. So essentially, Krishna was speaking in the last shloka of the eighth chapter that if you try to have a relationship with me, you will never miss out on the fruits, on the benefits that you will receive by study of the Vedas, austerity, by charity, Vedeshu tapasu chaiva, daneshu yaggeshu. If you do yagya, if you do dan, if you do tapasya, whatever benefits people get by all these activities, my dear Arjun, when you have a relationship with me, don't think that you will miss out on all these benefits. You don't have to go through all that variety. Just form a relationship with your father and you get all those benefits. Not only that, in the last shloka of the eighth chapter, he also assured you get all those benefits while living in this world, and at the end, you also come to my spiritual abode, which is beginningless and therefore endless or destructionless. So now Krishna is so happy to reveal about these benefits of having a personal relationship with Krishna that he begins the ninth chapter just like he began the seventh chapter because he spoke about the benefits of devotional service in the last shloka of the sixth chapter. So we can understand whenever Krishna speaks about a relationship between the living entity and himself, he becomes very happy and he cannot restrain himself but speak about it more, explain about it more. And just by understanding how seventh chapter began on his own and how ninth chapter began on his own, we can understand how much Krishna is interested in you and me forming, re-establishing a relationship with him. So this is ninth chapter, first shloka. Idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshyami anasuyave jnana vijnana sahitam yadgyatva mokshase ashubhat. So I'll read the translation. I don't have a slide. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear Arjun, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence. So Krishna is saying, yes, I know there are so many miseries in this material existence, but just by knowing about me, just by hearing about me, just by forming this relationship with me in a much better way, you will be relieved from all these material miseries. So what essentially is Krishna going to speak now? Jnana Vijnana Sahitam. Krishna mentioned, I'm going to speak to you knowledge and realization of that knowledge. So he's going to speak about the nine processes of devotional service. Bhakti or a relationship with Krishna is executed in 9 different ways. The first, the easiest way, the most easily accessible way is by hearing about him. When you hear about Krishna, you form a relationship with him. The second is after you sufficiently hear about him, you get so happy, you feel so much satisfied within your heart that you want to share this happiness with others, you want to share this knowledge with others. So this is called Kirtanam, Shravanam, and then Kirtanam. After you have sufficiently heard and after you have sufficiently distributed it, after you have sufficiently spoken about it, and slowly then it sinks in your heart, then the third process that comes naturally to a devotee is Smaranam. Smaranam is just remembering Krishna. So when you are all alone, or even if you're not alone, but you see some object, then it reminds you of Krishna. For example, you could go to the zoo, and in the zoo, amongst all the animals and the birds, you could also come across the peacock. And as soon as you see the peacock, before you read the Gita, peacock was just a very beautiful bird. But after you read the Gita and after you became familiar with Krishna and you saw the peacock on Krishna's head always, that is his very unique characteristic, then you realize that yes, oh, whenever I see the peacock, because the peacock feather reminds me of Krishna, I get reminded of Krishna. Or it is possible that when it is very cloudy, the sky is very cloudy, and you see the Ghanasham, you see the blackish clouds in the sky, then you are also reminded of the Ghanasham, the personality who showers lot of mercy, who showers lot of kripa, who showers lot of compassion in this world in different forms. So he is also Ghanasham. So in this way, after sufficient Shravan and after sufficient Kirtanam comes very natural Smaranam. Then after you have sufficiently developed a relationship in the heart also, then you want to express that relationship. So you want to worship Krishna. You want to offer all the best articles that you have to Krishna. So worship of Krishna is not just in the form of agarbatti or a lamp or some flowers or something. Worship is basically offering your emotions, your sentiments to Krishna. Or if you have some very nice articles at your home, maybe you have a silver dish, or you have a silver spoon, or you have a silver bowl, and all that. So then you want to offer it to Krishna and you want to say, I don't eat myself in a silver plate, but since you are so dear to me, I want to offer the best that I have to you. So that's called archanam. Then sometimes, you also want to offer your heart in the form of prayers. That is called vandanam. So in this way, archanam, vandanam, dasyam, you consider yourself to be a very humble menial servant of Krishna and you want to obey Krishna's orders out of affection for him, not out of force or not out of fear for him. And then you also sometimes want to be in a very friendly mood with Krishna. You want to share your heart with Krishna, just like you share your heart with some of your dearmost friends in this world. So that's called Sakhyam. And then there is also one in which you offer everything that you have, including your body, including your mind, including whatever you possess. That's called Atma Nivedanam. So in this way, there are different processes of devotional service. And Krishna wants us to connect to him in this way or that way. Because he's saying, I am your long lost father, and why don't you connect to me? So these processes that Krishna is going to speak. And he already spoke that this is very secret. So why is it a secret? It is secret because Krishna will not easily speak about this. For milking a cow, you require a calf. And if the calf is not there, then the cow does not release the milk. Of course, in the modern times, they have some equipment, they have some machines that forcibly take out milk. But the natural way to take out milk from the cow is to show a calf to her and allow the calf to drink some milk. And the satisfaction of the mother is that, oh, my calf got whatever milk it needed. And after that, then the cow has a lot of milk that just flows very naturally post the satisfaction of the cow. Similarly, here for Krishna to reveal all this knowledge to us, there was a very good calf which was necessary, and that was Arjun. So seeing Arjun in front, Krishna is impelled, Krishna is, Krishna is inspired to speak more and more. And that's why it's called Guhya. Why? Guhyatara, Guhyatama, then most people don't even know that they're spirit soul. Most people feel that they belong to a particular family, to a particular race, and they're caught up in those bodily relationships. And in bodily relationships, there are ups and downs, and then people get so disturbed. Why is my sister behaving with me like this? Why is my brother behaving with me like this? So many people keep telling me that sometimes in a marriage relationship, the parents put a lot of emphasis on marrying within a particular caste or marrying within a particular social setup, and then that causes a lot of friction within the family, that why is there is so much incest. So all these bodily relationships, they cause a lot of issues, and Krishna is taking us beyond those bodily relationships, that actually we all are related on the level of the spirit soul. So very difficult to accept that I am not this body, and that's why it's very difficult to accept that we have a relationship with Krishna. And now Krishna is talking about the highest, most selfless kind of a relationship. So bhakti is of two types. If anybody remembers, in 8th chapter, in the middle, I guess it was something like 15, 16, 17 or something, where Krishna talked about Ananya Bhakti. Krishna was saying about how Ananya, and I remember talking about Anya means somebody else or something else, and Ananya means nothing else. So in the middle of the 8th chapter, Krishna spoke about Ananya Bhakti, and 9th chapter is basically an explanation of how you and me can practice Ananya Bhakti. So unalloyed, not alloyed, not mixed, but pure bhakti, without any contamination, without any selfishness. And then he mentions what is Arjun's qualification to receive this most confidential knowledge. And Krishna uses the word anasuyave. Anasuyave means non-envious. So, as per Krishna, the qualification of Arjun to receive this most confidential knowledge that God wants to give to all of us, this pure bhakti, pure selfless relationship, is that Krishna is mentioning Arjun is non-envious. And I was thinking to myself that what makes Arjun non-envious? Why would Krishna not speak this most confidential knowledge to some sadhu who's practicing a lot of tapasya in the Himalayas, or probably to some person who's not very rich, somebody who's very simple in his lifestyle? Why would Krishna speak this knowledge to somebody who belongs to the royal family? So he's one of the richest people. Arjun is one of the richest people. Arjun also happens to be one of the most strongest people physically, and he also, is one of the family members. Krishna's own sister, Subhadra, is married to Arjun. So, in one sense, it appears to be something that is based on externals, his physical power or his financial power or his family power, that he happens to be the brother in law of Krishna. But right from the first shloka where Krishna started speaking, Krishna has been denying all that. Krishna has been saying that I don't give importance to all these external characteristics. So they happen to be external characteristics, but in this shloka 9.1, Krishna goes very, very, very much to the root of the qualifications of Arjun. So the qualification of Arjun is not that he's related to Krishna. The qualification of Arjun is that he's non-envious. And if anybody remembers, in the 4th chapter, in the beginning, I guess it was 4.3, 4.4, or 4.5, somewhere in that section, Krishna at that time also mentioned to Arjun, you know why I'm telling you this knowledge? Bhakto si me sakha cheti rahasyam hi etad uttamam. So there also Krishna used that word. Rahasyam hi etad uttamam. Krishna there he spoke rahasya. I'm going to speak to you something very confidential. And uttamam. Uttamam means this is not an ordinary rahasya. I'm going to speak you very confidential. Why? Bhakto si me sakha cheti. You are my friend and you are my devotee. And again, in 9.1, Krishna is using the same concept and saying, I'm going to speak to you, Guhya Tamam. I'm going to speak to you the most confidential knowledge because you're Anasuyave. And then I was thinking that what is Arjun's non-enviousness? So I'm trying to decode it for you. What is Arjun's non-enviousness, and why would Krishna feel that others may not come up to this golden benchmark of non-enviousness? See, I see Krishna. not only as a Supreme Lord, but I see Krishna as a Supreme Person. He is a personality. And maybe I discussed this before, but I was thinking how in the seventh chapter, when finally Krishna started speaking about himself, how he started explaining about his own high position, it was not easy for Krishna to start speaking about his own position and about his own greatness. And that's why from the second chapter, the first topic that Krishna spoke was not about himself and his own greatness. It's very difficult for a gentleman to start speaking about himself. So, first, he talks about the person in front, something that is beneficial to the person to whom he's talking to. And in the course of the discussion, yes, something about his own greatness might come. We are talking about gentlemen here, we are not talking about ordinary people here. It is quite possible that some ordinary people they start off by talking about their own greatness, but here we're talking about gentlemen. I heard about this incident that Walt Disney, he had a daughter, and one point of time, this daughter, in Walt Disney's absence, seems he had gone somewhere else, and she visited Walt Disney Studios. And there she came to know when she went to that huge studio that what is the enormous kind of activity that is happening in so many films and so many animation series, and there are so many people working. And there, when she entered that studio, she saw a huge board there which said Walt Disney Studios. And then she was probably in the eighth grade or the ninth grade at that time. And then it hit her that the Walt Disney that I have at my home, the father that I have at my home, he behaves in such a very natural way, and he behaves in a very ordinary way with me, and we sometimes have fights and we sometimes have very natural dealings, just like so many kids in my school have. But now when I came to Walt Disney Studios, then I understood the power that my father has and the influence that my father has. And that evening, it seems, when she went home and father came home, she said, Papa, now I understood you are the Walt Disney. You are not ordinary person. So similarly, it's very difficult for people who are really gentlemen to speak about their own greatness, and they allow people, others, to slowly come up to that platform where they realize their greatness. It's not very easy for Krishna to start speaking about his own qualification, his own position, his own greatness right from second chapter. So when Krishna is speaking that, he has a hesitation. Should I not? Arjun is such a nice person, and I have chosen Arjun to speak this. So I have to speak it. I have to speak the truth, because if I don't speak the truth, then who's going to speak it? But if I speak, will it create a wall of respect, a wall of awe and reverence in between my friendship with Arjun? So here is such a nice, sweet relationship between Krishna and Arjun, and now Krishna has a big challenge in front of him. Should I speak about my own greatness? Because if I don't do that, how will people come to know how they need to connect to me as their original father? But if I speak in the interest of the rest of the world, what might happen to Arjun is Arjun might feel, oh, it means Krishna is not my friend. Krishna is not somebody in whom I can reveal my heart. Krishna is the Supreme Lord, and then there can be a distance between them in that relationship. So Krishna is also undergoing all these challenges, and so that's why in seventh chapter he started speaking. So now when in seventh chapter he spoke, he observed that the knowledge that Krishna spoke to Arjun about his own greatness did not create a wall. And in fact, when you come to know of the sweetness of a person before, and then you come to know of his greatness, actually that greatness increases the sweetness of the person. Just like Walt Disney's daughter, she had a very sweet relationship with the father, papa, father, whatever, dad, whatever. And then one day she realizes this sweetness is more sweet now, because all these days I realize my father was always great. And even though my father was one of the greatest person, the richest person, he never ever spoke about his greatness to me. So when you realize that a great person hid his greatness, then that understanding or that revelation makes that person's greatness even more sweeter. How sweet is my father, that just to not create a wall between myself and him, He did not speak about his greatness. And one day on my own, when I went to the studio, then I realized what great personality my father is. So in seventh chapter, when Krishna started speaking about his own greatness, Arjun did not go away from Krishna. Arjun came more closer to Krishna. And that gave an impetus to Krishna that in ninth chapter he's going to speak about it himself. And this time, Krishna feels if I speak about my greatness and if I tell him how the most important relationship that anybody can have is with me, when I speak this, Krishna knows for sure Arjun will not misinterpret it as self glorification. He has that faith from seventh chapter and eighth chapter that Arjun is not going to interpret is as fueling his own ego. Oh, Krishna is just taking this as an opportunity to fuel his own ego. No, Krishna has that confidence in Arjun that when I speak more about my own glorification, it is going to pull Arjun more and more and more and more closer to me. And through Arjun, Krishna has this faith that so many of us also, the more we read and the more we hear about Krishna's greatness, we are going to feel how can this greatest person be so detached that he does not want to impose his authority on anybody, not that he comes everywhere all over this world and puts some signboards all over the place. This river belongs to Krishna. This mountain belongs to Krishna. This piece of land originally belongs to Krishna. This planet in the sky belongs to Krishna. The moon in the sky belongs to Krishna. The sun that gives you energy also belongs to me. There are no boards anywhere. And so, the more we come to know about Krishna's greatness in the proper channel through devotees, then we understand how much I have missed so much sweetness forming such a sweet relationship with the Supreme Person. So, coming back to this point of anasuya way, non envious. What is the non envious that Krishna is seeing in Arjun? The non enviousness that Krishna is seeing in Arjun is when I speak to him about my glorification, he is not going to take it in a negative way. He is not going to take it in a egoistic way. Oh, till now he was my friend and now he's talking about his own greatness. Sometimes when two friends meet and one person has become very successful in the outside world and in a very natural way, he starts speaking about his own success. Sometimes I have observed that the other person feels little restless and till the time one of the friends did not speak about his own greatness, everything was very good. But as soon as one person starts speaking about the greatness, the second person becomes little more conscious. Oh, I need to speak something about myself also. I also need to speak how I was also successful. I've seen two people talking, and one of them says, "In my school, I always had high grades. In my college, I had high grades." And instead of congratulating that friend, this person says, "Yes, yes, actually, in my school, I was also getting good marks. Yes, in my college, I also stood first in one competition." So, it's trying to match up to the high qualifications of a friend. But Krishna has no such fear from Arjun. Krishna knows if I speak about myself, Arjun is not going to get agitated in the heart. अभी मुझे भी कुछ तो बोलना पड़ेगा मेरे greatness के बारे में. No, he has tested Arjun in chapter number 7 and chapter number 8. And that's why Krishna says, your qualification to hear this most confidential knowledge is you are non-envious of me. So, my dear friends, it is a secret. It is Guhya Tama. But here we are. We are publicly discussing this secret. And the Bhagavad Gita, especially the ninth chapter, printed in it, has been widely distributed. ISKCON itself has distributed more than 55 crore Bhagavad Gitas all over the world in different languages. So 55 crore people, that's 550 million people in this world have access to the Bhagavad Gita, in which this shloka is mentioned that it is a secret. So, how come it is a secret? Just like sometimes we have a file that comes to us by email, but we may not have the password to that file. And although we have the file, but we cannot open the file, a Word document or a PDF file. Similarly, everyone has the Gita, everyone has the shlokas, but unless you really have that non envious nature in your heart, that when Krishna speaks about his own greatness, or when some devotee is glorifying somebody who is very dear to Krishna. If we are glorifying Lord Balaram, if we are glorifying Rakhumai, Rukmini Devi, in Maharashtra she is called Rakhumai. When we hear glories of Krishna, when we hear glories of Balaram, when we hear glories of Yashoda, how Yashoda loves Krishna so much, and because of her love for Krishna, Krishna is conquered by that love. Krishna gets captured by that love. So when we glorify Krishna or when we glorify the pure devotees of Krishna, do we feel happiness in our heart? Do we feel a joy erupting like a volcano in our heart? How fortunate is Yashodamai? How fortunate is Nanda Maharaj? How fortunate is Balram? How fortunate is Radharani? How fortunate is Rakhumai that they loved Krishna. They are still loving Krishna so much that Krishna, the Supreme Person, gets conquered by that love and Krishna becomes captured by that love. So the more we hear glorification of Krishna and the more we hear glorification of the devotees of Krishna, we have to check within our heart, do I also become a little bit restless? And do I also start counting my own qualifications as a devotee? And as somebody is speaking about the glories of a devotee, do I start counting, अरे मैंने क्या क्या सेवा किया है कृष्ण का? One time I did this for Krishna. One time I did this for Krishna. If we have such thoughts that I also did something for Krishna, out of a feeling of gratitude that yes, I am also following in the line of Radharani, I am also following in the line of Rakhumai, then there is no problem. But we have to seriously inspect our hearts and check out if there is this competitive kind of a spirit. अरे इन भक्तों ने भगवान के लिए ऐसे किया लेकिन मैं भी कुछ कम नहीं हूं, मैंने भी कृष्ण के लिए बहुत कुछ किया है. If this kind of attitude is there, then in 9.1 and I guess in 4.5 we get disqualified. We get disqualified to understand the Gita. We get disqualified to understand the most confidential knowledge. We might become a parrot and we might know a few shlokas here and there. But unless we are truly non envious of Krishna and those who are dear to Krishna, Bhagavad Gita and especially the most confidential knowledge, Bhakti, the relationship that Krishna wants us to establish with Him, will remain a far distance from us. And when do we become envious? When do we become envious? In a friendly relationship with a friend, we are talking and that friend starts describing his own success and his own exploits, how he got this award and that award. When do we become envious? When does that feeling of envy start in their heart? When we feel a little bit selfish. We feel, "No, I also am something, not that I am nothing." But to appreciate somebody else does not mean that you are nobody. Just the fact that one of our friends is doing good, just the fact that one of our friends has got so many awards and is becoming famous in the world, that is enough reason for us to become happy. And one fine day, in a natural discussion, when the topic goes to something related to your own awards, to your own exploits, to your own success, you can of course speak about your own success. The point is not to hide your success. The point is to not speak of your own success इन ए कॉम्पिटिटिव स्पिरिट. हम भी कुछ कम नहीं है, हमने भी बहुत कुछ किया है. That kind of spirit is something that dampens, that hurts the friendship relationship the most. And that is why Krishna is speaking that, my dear Arjun, I never found that feeling in you. And that's why I'm going to speak to you this knowledge. So when we are not selfish, when we don't get disturbed by hearing somebody else's success, that is the first qualification to hear from Krishna about the most confidential knowledge. And we should never ever get any feeling in our heart that sometimes when Krishna starts speaking about his own greatness, I think Krishna has a need for self glorification. I think Krishna wants to present himself as a very great person. That's why he starts speaking about himself. No. Unless the father speaks about his position as your father, when will the orphan child develop an attraction for the father? Imagine a father who does not ever reveal to the orphan, not orphan in the real sense, but a child who was told that the child is orphan, but the father was always there. But the father feels, no, no, I don't want to speak that I am her father, I am your father, out of a feeling of humility. What injustice it is to the child. So father, when he comes to that child and says, 10 years, the situation did not allow me to tell you that I am your father, but I am the father whom you were searching all your life. That is not self-glorification. That is the father's reaching out to the child. And this is what Krishna is doing. So we should know this. And this, speaking of the secret, the most confidential knowledge to Arjun, is something like, the grandfather telling the family secrets to the growing up grandchild. Sometimes in a family, there are some family secret wealth, or there is some secret estate, or there is some secret land somewhere. There are some secret contacts with somebody, whatever. But those are strictly family secrets. They are never out in the open. And Krishna wants to tell him some secrets about the internal family of Krishna. I was told that the formula for making the Coca-Cola drink or the Pepsi drink, the formula, very secret. Hardly some 4 or 5 people on this whole planet know, although millions and millions drink Coca-Cola and millions drink Pepsi, the original formula is super secret. Nobody knows for sure what are the ingredients of Pepsi. What are the ingredients of Coca-Cola? Try searching it out. What are the ingredients? There's so much speculation, but nobody knows. Actually, what people get, factories in India, what they get is there is a concentrate that comes in a bottle, and the ratio is mentioned that this much concentrate in this much liters of water, and that's how they get it. So imagine, even people like Coca-Cola and Pepsi, they want to keep their trade secrets. And here is Krishna who says, I don't want myself to be judged. When I talk about this secret about how to come close to me, I don't want people to judge me that, oh, this is Krishna's need for self glorification. And that's why Krishna does not speak it very easily. In the 12th chapter, 12th chapter is called Bhakti Yoga. And in 12th chapter, shloka number 13 to shloka number 20 is a list of the qualities of a devotee. So in our natural course, when we reach 12th chapter, I'll again highlight that. But these 8 shlokas, Krishna speaks about roughly 19 qualities that a devotee should have. And the first quality that Krishna starts speaking in 12.13 is that a devotee is non-envious. He says, Adveshta sarva bhutanam maitrah karuna evacha nirmamo nirahankara sama dukkha sukha kshami. The first thing that he speaks is a devotee is non-envious. So, my dear friends, I spoke about the quality of non-envy from different perspectives, but it starts with selfishness. If we are selfish, we can never be non-envious, and if we are not non-envious, we can never ever know Krishna and the relationship that pleases Krishna the most. So it's our interest that slowly we have to work on our selfishness in our heart. Slowly we have to work on the need that is there in our hearts to glorify ourselves when somebody else glorifies themselves. So slowly if we work on these internal qualities in our own hearts, slowly the Gita will reveal itself to us. And then the most biggest secret, which is openly being distributed to anybody and everybody, will also get revealed in our own heart. So we'll go to the second shloka. This is 9.2. Rajavidya Rajaguhyam Pavitram Idamuttamam Pratakshawagamam Dharmyam Susukham Kartumavyayam. So the word that is used is Rajavidya, Rajaguhyam. 2 times Krishna uses Raja. So there are 2 interpretations of this word. Rajavidya means this is the king of all knowledge. And another interpretation is this is the knowledge of all the kings. Rajaguhya means this is the king of all secrets. And it also means this is the secret of all the kings. So why is it mentioned? What is the second interpretation? Why to take the second interpretation? One quality of the king, a genuine king, is that he has a lot of wealth. But if you check out the character or the activities of genuine kings, in Maharashtra we had Shivaji Maharaj. If you check out the qualities of Shivaji Maharaj, he was also very magnanimous. He was also a very charitable person. So, yes, they collect wealth in the form of taxes, but they also distribute wealth back to society. And that's why tax collection becomes very easy when you have a government like that. That people, because they receive so much benefits, they want to give taxes on their own. In the Bhagavatam, 10th canto, I guess it is chapter number 25, it is a description of the autumn season in Vrindavan. And then it is mentioned, analogy is given, that the clouds, they take water from the sea, and the same clouds then distribute water to the land. So the clouds, when they are taking, the clouds, when they are absorbing water from the sea, they don't want the water to be kept with themselves. They absorb the water and again give the water. So there that example is given that these clouds are like a good king. They take water, but they give back water. Similarly, the king, they take taxes, but they also give it back. So Raja Vidya means is the king of all knowledge, but it also means is the knowledge of the kings. Why? Because only somebody who has a broad heart, only somebody who wants to give, who wants to share, who is not selfish, who is not somebody who's attached in every small way, only such a person can understand this knowledge. So Raj Vidya, Raj Guhyam. This is the king of all secrets and is the king of all philosophies also. How many philosophies are in there in this world? Some philosopher says we are the body, and if you give pleasure to the body, that is how we'll be happy. There was a philosopher called René Descartes in France. And you remember that statue, a famous statue where there is a man and he has his hand on his cheeks and he's thinking. So that statue is called the Thinking Man, somewhere there in France. And it was made based on the works of René Descartes. And he said, I think, therefore I am. So he gave a definition of our existence, not related to the body, but he said, we are the mind. I think, therefore I am. So I am the mind. Some people feel, beg, borrow, steal, but eat and drink and live a life of merry. Some people say, we should do tapasya. We should do, we should cause uh, trouble to the body. In this, there are so many philosophies in this world. But Krishna is saying the philosophy that I'm going to speak in the Gita, especially now what I'm going to speak in the ninth chapter, is the king of all philosophies. Yes. This is the highest philosophy. And this is also the philosophy of the kings who are magnanimous, who are broad-hearted. And then he says, it is pavitram idam uttamam. This is the most pavitra, this is the most purest of all philosophies. Why so? Because this philosophy purifies us. We may be sinful in the past, we may have done some mistakes in the past, but when somebody comes close to the philosophy of the Gita, when somebody follows the principles of the Gita, you realize I'm getting so much satisfaction in this philosophy. I'm getting so much internal happiness in this philosophy. I no longer am attracted to my bad habits. So many devotees have come and told me how at one point of time they had some bad qualities, they had some bad habits. It may be as simple as lying, it may be as simple as cheating, it may be as simple as you know compulsively trying to hide some things. It could be something serious like duplicity. It could be something that having evil thoughts about others. But people have told me just by attending the Gita classes and just by going through all this, they just no longer feel a need to derive gratification out of their wrong habits. I many times give this example that one time, in February 2009, I had done a Gita course in the temple, and one person had attended that program. And after attending 6 days of that Gita course, he came to me and he told me he had been a compulsive alcohol drinker for something like 22 years before that. And he told me just by attending this Gita course, he just felt so happy that he's now having information about the Supreme Lord. He told me this after 2 months. He said on the last day of the Gita course, he would drink alcohol every day on the last day of the Gita course. Somehow he just felt there is no longer any need to drink alcohol, and he told me he did it for 2 months, and he came and told me that just based on the knowledge that I'm receiving in the Gita and the happiness that I'm receiving, and this kind of purity that I'm experiencing in my life, I have just given it up, something that was impossible for me. So many others have told me how they have given up smoking, And so many others have told me how the change has been more internal, that there were some behavioral changes in them. So Krishna is mentioning Pavitram idam uttamam. And in the purport, Prabhupada mentions the story of Narad Muni in his previous life. All of us know about Narad Muni, the wandering preacher, is always distributing knowledge about Krishna to anyone and everyone all over the world. But the Bhagavatam mentions one life of Narad Muni before he became the great Narad Muni. And he was born as the son of a maid. This maid was a ordinary person serving in other people's homes. And during one particular time of the year, which is called Chaturmas, Chaturmas is basically the 4 months of the monsoon, this maid received some sadhus, some devotees of Lord Krishna at her home. And this son of the maid never went to any Gurukul, did not even know how to read and write, but because the mother invited some devotees at her home to stay during Chaturmas, traditionally, the sadhus don't travel during Chaturmas because they would travel on foot. And during monsoon season, scorpions and snakes come out, and also there are many worms and all that, and they don't want to step. So sadhus usually don't travel during monsoon season traditionally. So they stayed at this maid's home for 4 months, and during these 4 months, it is mentioned this small boy, just because he has love for his mother, he served those sadhus. And what did he serve? Mother would prepare some food, and a small boy would take that food to the sadhus and feed them, serve them, and after they would finish, then just bring those plates. In this way, just by serving those sadhus, slowly he got purified. And when he became purified, one day, out of attachment for the sadhus, he asked the sadhu, can I take something that is left behind in the plate by you, just like we take the Supreme Lord's Mahaprasad? So he asked that, can I take your Mahaprasad? So Krishna's remnants in the plate are very purifying. But it is mentioned somebody who loves Krishna, when he eats something, in his heart is love for Krishna. So what happens is, after he leaves behind some prasad, of course, a devotee of Krishna is not going to eat something that is unoffered to Krishna. So there is something prepared, it is offered to Krishna, and that which is offered to Krishna is called Mahaprasad, and that Mahaprasad is eaten by the devotee, and then what remains is called Mahaprasad. It is not just Mahaprasad, it is called Mahaprasad. And that Mahaprasad is especially potent. Why? Because his devotee has so much love for Krishna. And it is mentioned that a small boy, one day, he took permission from the sadhus, and because he had served them selflessly, menially for 4 months, the sadhu said, okay, you may take. And that day, when he took the Mahaprasad of the sadhus, there was a transformation in his heart. Just by serving the sadhus, he got attachment, and by taking the Mahaprasad, he developed intense attachment for Krishna. And in a matter of some months, the sadhus left, and then the mother died because of a snake bite. All this is mentioned. And the small boy, because he had already developed intense attachment for Krishna, he left home and he was searching for the Supreme Lord all over the world. And in his travels all around the world, he came at one place where there was a pure river. He took that water and he meditated on Krishna because he already had a relationship with Krishna, and he died. And when he died, basically, he left his body, and that was the appearance of Narad Muni. So Narad Muni from that time has become a great preacher, but none of us knew how this Narad Muni became Narad Muni. The story behind the story. Sometimes they interview great industrialists like Ratan Tata and they ask him, "Can you tell us about your past?" Or they will ask Infosys chairman Narayan Murthy, "Can you tell us something about your past?" But if we are really serious about bhakti, then we should ask those great rich capitalists, those great rich people of Bhakti, Narad Muni. How did you become Narad Muni? And this is the story of Narad Muni, how just by serving genuine devotees of Krishna, today he is great Narad Muni. So Prabhupada gives this example of Pavitram Idam Uttamam. How amazing it is that never went to a Gurukul, never attended any classes, and never did anything in that external sense of education, but just by serving devotees, all that was necessary was revealed in his heart. And then, out of intense attachment for Krishna, he has now become the great Narad Muni, the great universal preacher. Almost everyone in the Bhagavatam and all the great sadhus and the great rishis, they have received instructions. Prahlad, Dhruv, you name anybody in the Bhagavatam, all of them have their guru as Narad Muni. So Prabhupada gives this example. Also, there is an example of how there are the four Kumaras. There are these first born children of Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma is the first person, and then the first children of Lord Brahma. They are the Manasa Putra. Manasa Putra means they are born from the mind of Brahma. And Brahma gave them birth from his own mind to request them to populate the universe. That is the seva of these four Kumaras. But these four Kumaras denied it. The four Kumaras said, we don't want, because we know all this business is a very contaminating business and we don't want to get into all that. So these four Kumaras, they were not really great devotees of the Lord. And one time when they were going around the universe, they smelt the fragrance of Tulsi. And this Tulsi is very dear to Krishna. So one day, when they were traveling around the world, they smelt the fragrance of Tulsi, and this Tulsi was on the feet of Lord Vishnu. So already Tulsi is very dear to Krishna, and that time it was on the feet of Lord Vishnu. And it is mentioned these four Kumaras who are so pure, but the only thing lacking in them was they did not have any affection for Krishna. They are just pure by themselves. They don't have any bad habits, they don't have any bad thoughts, and they feel that everything in this material world is not really pure. They just want to remain detached from everything. But when they inhaled the fragrance of tulsi leaves, they got agitated in their heart and they started searching from where is this fragrance of tulsi coming. And when they saw the beautiful form of Lord Vishnu, they also became great devotees. So it is mentioned even these four Kumaras never went to any Gurukul and they never even underwent some kind of a purificatory process. Just by being close to Tulsi, who is very dear to Krishna, they developed these emotions. So I want to take you to the Srimad Bhagavatam, and this is Canto 11, chapter number 12, Shloka number 7, 11.12.7. Somebody has Bhagavatam, you can check it out, or if you don't have, then maybe you can request me and I can send you that specific shloka. So here Krishna is speaking to Uddhav. The persons I have mentioned did not undergo serious studies of the Vedic literature, nor did they worship great saintly persons, nor did they execute severe vows or austerities. Simply by association with me and my devotees, they achieved me. So this is shloka number 7. But from shloka number 1 to shloka number 6, there is a list of many great devotees that Krishna is speaking to Arjun. And I'll just read out that shloka translation. This is shloka number 3 to shloka number 6. This is Krishna speaking to Uddhav in the Srimad Bhagavatam. In every yuga, many living entities entangled in the modes of passion and ignorance gained the association of my devotees. Krishna is glorifying his devotees. Thus, such living entities as the Daityas, Prahlad is a Daitya. Prahlad is born in a demon family. Thus, such living entities as the Daityas, Rakshasas, birds, beasts, Gandharvas, Apsaras, Nagas, Siddhas, Charanas, Guhyakas, and Vidyadharas. These are different species, as well as such lower class human beings as the Vaishyas, Shudras, women, and others were able to achieve my supreme abode. And then he's giving a list of people. Vritrasur, Prahlad Maharaj, and others like them also achieved my abode by association with my devotees, as did personalities like Vrishaparva. Vrishaparva is one Rakshas. Bali Maharaj, Banasur, Mayadanav, Vibhishan, Sugriv, Hanuman, Jambavan, Gajendra, Jatayu. Jatayu is a vulture, so is a low bird. Tuladhar, Dharmavyad, Kubja, the gopis in Vrindavan, and the wives of the Brahmanas who were performing sacrifice. So in shloka number 3 to shloka number 6, 12th chapter, canto number 11, Krishna gives a long list of people who basically on their own qualification could not achieve Krishna. But Krishna says in 11.12.7, it was possible just by the association of my devotees. So Prabhupada takes that angle and tells how Krishna is saying this devotional service is bhakti so easy to perform. That small boy just served the devotees of Krishna. These Chatush Kumaras, they inhaled the fragrance of Tulsi. And similarly, Krishna is mentioning in Uddhav Gita that so many, Vibhishan, he's born in a Rakshas family. So purposefully, Krishna does not mention anybody from a great patronage like Arjun, because Arjun becoming a devotee can be understood. He is a very well cultured person. But Jatayu, and Hanuman and Sugriv, they were born in animal species, but even they also became great devotees. So Krishna is inspiring all of us that how easy it is to perform, but please do not misunderstand it because it is easy, it is impotent. No, it is a very potent process. We'll just end with some 1 or 2 points in 2 minutes. One example that we can understand to understand the power of the bhakti process is take a bunch of 100 leaves, some leaves from a plant, and take those 100 leaves stacked up close to each other, so maybe they will be this much thick, and take a needle and pass it through those leaves. So those leaves, green leaves, they don't have much substance, and that needle will immediately pass through those 100 leaves, is it not? It is almost like effortless. But still, you should understand, if you observe this video recording microscopically or a very slow motion, then you will see the needle passing to the first leaf, then it passes through the second leaf, then it passes through the third leaf, and so on. So in a very slow motion, the leaf actually passes through one by one leaf in a very serial manner. But if you take it realistically, it passes through the 100 leaves. The needle has so much strength. Similarly, the bhakti process, it actually destroys one by one all our sinful tendencies. All our bad habits are like those 100 or 1,000 leaves, and the needle just passes through it. Now, if you ask somebody layman who does not have a recording, they say, "Hey, in a moment, this needle passed through 100 leaves." Similarly, actually, if we become genuine devotees of the Lord, in one moment we become purified, and all our bad habits get destroyed. But if you observe it microscopically, in very slow motion, then we see how bhakti slowly destroyed one habit after another, slow, one by one, one by one. This is the potency of the bhakti process. It is mentioned in some scriptures how one holy name, one time we chant the holy name of Lord Krishna, it has so much power that all of us don't have the power to do so many sinful activities. That is the power of one holy name. And one time we had been to South India, so this example was given. There are many crows sitting on a tree, and you take one stone and throw it at a tree. How many birds are left there? Not a single one, because everyone flies away. Similarly, one holy name, if we chant sincerely and genuinely with no other thoughts, actually calling out to Krishna, then my dear Krishna, just like a small child cries out to the mother, I also want to reach out to you. You are my father, you are my mother. Then it is mentioned all our past sins can be destroyed, and we can become so pure that we cannot perform any sinful activities in the future. That is the kind of insurance that is given to us. So just because this is the thought that is being explained, let's chant this one Maha Mantra together, closing our eyes and actually genuinely praying to Krishna. My dear Krishna, please allow me to come closer to you. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So this is the power of the bhakti process, and this is the power of the holy name. And the last word in 9.2 that Krishna mentions is Su Sukham Kartum Avyayam. That when we participate in this bhakti process, it is not a painful process. It is Su Sukham. कितना अच्छा लगता है. We associate with good people, we hear good things, we have good prasad, we hear good music, we have good thoughts, we have good ideals for the future in our life. And the last word is avyayam. Avyayam means this bhakti and the path of bhakti can never be destroyed. Avyay, उसमें कभी कमी नहीं होती है. And in this way, Krishna is asking us, my dear devotees, please remember that I am permanent, you are permanent, and that's why your relationship with me is permanent. Any other relationship that you form in this world is temporary. Only your relationship with me is permanent, and it transcends caste, it transcends religion, it transcends gender, it transcends financial status, it transcends everything. So I'll just end with this. I have my Mausi, I have my mother's sister. At one point of time, I used to speak to her about Krishna, and I told her, everyone will leave us in due course of time, but only Krishna won't leave us. And at one point of time in her life, she developed some pain behind her right eye, and nobody could diagnose. So, 2 months of different testing, and nobody could diagnose what is the pain source in the back of the eye. And then it was mentioned to her that she should undergo a CT scan. And in that CT scan, if anybody has undergone a CT scan, it's a huge room, it's very cold, and nobody's allowed. So she had the hand of her husband and till the last moment, and then doctor said, Mataji, now you have to undergo this alone. And it was a very fearful situation. That CT scan machine, you go inside that machine and it creates sort of sound and all that. So that time she remembered my words, and she said, oh, he had told me that at one point of time, every dear person might go away, but Krishna is always there. And then 40 minutes of that CT scan, when she was inside that machine, and it was a very fearful situation, she remembered my words and she kept on chanting, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And when she came out, she called me and she told me, I remember your words, how at one point of time in our life, anyone and everyone we have might be taken away, but one person is always there with us, and that is Lord Krishna. And because I chanted the names of Krishna when I was inside that CT scan machine, she said I was completely fearless and there was nothing I underwent. But without that holy name with me inside a CT scan machine or inside an MRI machine, it would have been really difficult for me. She's her age is something like 60, 65, and for somebody like that to go inside that machine is really very fearful process. So I know one case which actually helped how chanting the holy names took my Mosi out of an intensely fearful situation. So in this way, it is avyayam, it is susukham kartum, but it is Raj Vidya and it is also Raj Guhyam. So I'll stop here. If anybody has any question or any comment, then you can unmute yourself and
Prabhuji, you mentioned in triggered a memory. I did an MRI for nearly an hour and a half. It had to be done 2 times continuously. And my Hare Krishna mantra only helped me that time. And I didn't realize it is 1.5 hours.
yeah, Prabhuji, you mentioned that you also had an MRI scan, right? That
Yes.
was what you were mentioning. Yeah,
And I did the mantra for 1.5 hours. I did not realize it is 1.5 hours that went away. I was just
right,
lost in the mantra. That did not
right.
matter at all. And that was my
Amazing,
support, total support.
amazing,
This is
amazing.
about 2 years back after I joined the Krishna classes, Shivaji Park, a little bit
Right,
after
right.
that. And it really helped me a lot.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. So, this is what Krishna is advising or suggesting to all of us in 9.1 and 9.2. Okay, anybody else wants to say something?
Hare Krishna
Okay.
Prabhuji.
Yeah,
Hare
yeah.
Krishna Prabhuji. Yeah.
Yes,
You
Mataji.
spoke very nicely about non-enviousness. Actually, this world, you can say this world is based on envy, no? Material world. And
Yes,
yeah, that I mean that is the I say undercurrent in the material world. So
yes.
yeah, so that's only one thing which I wanted to say. And
Sure,
secondly,
sure, sure.
yeah, that's the only thing I wanted to say. And secondly, what you mentioned about Bhagavatam 11th chapter, the 11th canto 11. There previous to that also there is Kali Yuga. Why Kali Yuga is worshipped? Because there will be a lot of devotees also, na? That is also there. Na? I read this that
Kali Yuga is worshipped. Kalim Sabhajayanti Arya, it is mentioned. Hmm? That
yes, yes,
Arya means civilized
Arya is
people.
pious souls. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Sabhajayanti, Kalim Sabhajayanti Arya, it is mentioned.
yes,
Why?
yes,
Because something that is very difficult in the previous ages becomes so easy in the Kali Yuga.
Yes.
So Krishna also knows in Kali Yuga people are really not very faithful and not really inspired. So he gives the easiest process. He says, just by chanting my holy names, you get something. Sarva swartho upalabhyate.
Yes, yes, yes.
So whatever is desirous, sarva swartha
Yes,
upalabhyate. Just by chanting these holy names, sarva swartho upalabhyate.
yes, yes.
Thank you. Thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else wants to say something? Okay, my best wishes to all of you for this 2021, and we have a very nice year waiting for us, not because of this reason or that reason, but because we still are continuing without fail our weekly discussions on Bhagavad Gita. This is the source of auspiciousness in our life. This is the source of so much mercy and so much blessings of Lord Krishna in our life. And till the time we have Krishna in our life, till the time we have the Gita in our life, I can assure you it is supremely auspicious. Pavitram idam uttamam. Thank you so much. I'm grateful to all of you for taking out your time on a weekday and participating in these classes. Thank you so much. Any other comments you can always mention to me, or any other questions also you can always send to me. Thank you so much. Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagwan ki jai. Shri Krishna Arjun ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna,
Prabhuji.
Hare
Thank you, Hari
Krishna,
Prabhuji.
thank you
Happy
very
New
Hare
much.
Year.
Krishna. Thank you.
Happy
Thank
New
you.
Year.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Grateful to all of you. Hare Krishna.